Welcome to Transgender. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
Well, fall is here. In fact, it's been here a while.
It's a nice fall. I enjoy the fall a lot. I like getting apples from the orchard and
Oh,
all
me
of the
too.
fun things that come with it. And of course, for me, I sell Medicare. That means that I am just starting my busy season right now.
Yes, it won't be long. So we will be taking a deep breath and we're going to try to make it through that and continue with the podcast. We are going to be here every week.
Today, we got a letter, and we are really excited to share this with you. We'll do that after this.
An email came to me and it said, if I think someone might be trans and I want to show support, what can I say?
That's a terrific question because we especially need people to be allies. When you read me this, I thought immediately of a story from our family where, of course, we grew up with you that you had spent a couple years in Japan. So when we were growing up, you would speak Japanese all the time around the house, and we would learn a little phrase here and there.
Yes.
We learned, so our cat was named Anone, which means
Hey, you.
hey you. And then the next cat was named Neko,
Yes.
which just means cat.
Cat. Yes.
We were out in a restaurant one time, and my sister was there, and she saw, and you had pointed out, there's a group over there, they're speaking Japanese, and she was really excited. She wanted to.
How old was she at the time?
I don't know.
I think maybe 8 or 9.
Oh, I was going to say maybe even a bit younger, maybe 6.
You could be.
Oh, whatever it was. She was in grade school. She was young. And she walked away, and then she came back to the table and she said, those Japanese people over there, I wanted to let them know, she wanted to show her support. She said, I went over there and I quietly said,
Walked
at
past.
the table, and I said, Neko.
Yeah.
But they didn't say anything.
Exactly. Like I can imagine those two girls there sitting there. Hey, that little girl said cat. Did you hear that? She said cat.
And of course, for her, she's thinking, hey, this is a big deal for me because, like, our cat even has a Japanese name. You can see both sides of that. And that is a little bit of how sometimes I feel like this is like, hey, I think that person might be transgender. And I know somebody that's transgender. Yeah, I listened to a podcast that talks about transgender issues. I want to go, and then you think, is there a code word that I can go over and say? Well, of course, that's not really how it works.
No, not at all. Absolutely. When I got the email, the first thing I noticed was the person didn't say, if someone is trans and I want to show my support. They said, if I think someone may be trans, which means I see somebody over there and I'm not sure, or maybe they meant to write it in another way. But the point is, they're saying, well, I don't really know this. How do I go out and out them pleasantly?
And of course, the first thing that I would ask as a transgender person, and what most of us would ask, is please don't out us. If we haven't brought it up with you, we probably don't want to talk about it.
For the cisgender people out there, what does that mean, out us?
Well, basically, let other people know that we're trans. So that's the most important thing. It's probably also secondarily important about the discussion that you and I might have in private. But more important than that, I don't want you coming and saying, hey, Raya, you're transgender, and now there's other people that are around that didn't know that I'm transgender. Because once they learn that I'm transgender, I can't take that back. It never goes, that you can't turn that off. I can't say, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have let you know. And I would like to go back on that. And really, I live my life largely with it not being an issue, other than the fact that we have a podcast about it. But I don't, when I live my life, when I'm at work or when I'm at the grocery store or when I'm seeing people around the apartment building, who I am just is not an issue. However, I did recently have somebody come up to me in the apartment building where I live. I'm just in my move from my apartment over to my house. And my neighbors, for all that I know, I think my new neighbors in the new place probably don't know that I'm transgender, except maybe they do. I don't know.
Right.
But the people in the apartments, one person knew me from before or knew somebody who knew me, and she was aware. And then she got to talking with one of the other people in the apartment complex. And this other woman came up to me and she said, "So, you're transgender, huh?" Oh, it wasn't quite like that. She was
Yeah.
very gracious about it.
Uh-huh.
But it was also, you could tell like she wanted to know some things, but also she didn't want to be offensive, and she didn't want to, I mean, she was very. It was a very pleasant conversation. And the first thing she said to me, she said, "I wouldn't have known if this other person wouldn't have told me." And I said, "First of all, I want you to know that for me, that's the biggest compliment you could give me. The fact that you didn't know, apart from being told, thank you, because I work really, really hard." Now, that might be unique to me. I place an especially high value on that for me as a person. When I transitioned, a big piece of it was I just want to fit in socially. And so if I'm not fitting in socially, if you're outing me, what you're basically doing is taking that away from me. That now, to the people that you've just outed me to, I no longer get to fit in just as I was, because now if they're the best ally in the world, it may not matter that much to them. If they're a medium ally, now they're thinking, "Oh, that's that trans person." And if they're not an ally, then they may view me forever and all time from there on out as a man pretending to be a woman.
If you're a regular listener, you've heard of one of the podcasts we did earlier. In fact, I think it was the first one in September. And it was about us actually doing a program at the largest service organization in our district, which is quite large. We did a program there. At that program, Raya and I talked about this podcast and what we do and what the mission is, etc. And if you've heard it, you understand what we're talking about. And if not, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to it. But the following week, I went back to the club, which is my club, and one of the people said to me, "That was really great. That was a great program you did. And, I don't care one way or the other. It doesn't make any difference to me." Before she transitioned, if she cut her arm, it bled. The blood was red, right? I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, now that all this happened, now if she cuts her arm, what color is the blood?" I said, "Periwinkle."
With sparkles.
Yeah. We both laughed.
That's great. So you want to try to be, for whoever this person is, first of all, I want to applaud you. It's very important. This is a very good thing that you want to show support. And we oftentimes need this more than you can know. But you also can't be like my sister coming up and transgender.
Yeah.
and hoping that the person will say something. So we've got to be very careful about how you approach things. And in general, the simple answer is, if somebody has not given you permission, has not taken the step to give you permission to talk about being trans, probably the polite thing to do is to not bring it up.
There are a lot of ways you can show support. For example, and many of those ways have nothing to do with what do I say, what questions do I ask, how do I react to this. It's to treat the person normal, because that's what they are. They're normal. And invite them to sit down with you, invite them to lunch with you. You just act real. You you have to be sincere and you have to be real. And when you do that, you automatically be just like you would any friend, because that's what they are. And they're like everyone else. Every person is different. There's going to be some things you like about that person and some things you may not, or some things you'd like to see different. That's all okay. The idea is they aren't any different.
The other thing you can do to show support is by showing support for other people. So, or finding other ways to show I am an ally. So maybe you have a physical space at work, and maybe you put up something on your cubicle or your office wall that signals to everybody there, I am an ally. Maybe you have an email signature and you put a little thing in your email signature that says, I'm an ally. Maybe you know about something like at my work, we have a Pride, they call it an NRG, a network resource group. And maybe you're not anywhere in the LGBTQ plus spectrum yourself, but you come because you want to show that you're an ally. That's one of the best ways that you can do it. Now, in this situation, you think you know somebody may be trans. The question is, what context are you in with them where they might see you?
Mm-hmm.
And then what are some ways in that context that you can demonstrate that you're an ally in general?
One of the things you can do is try to understand. I mean, this is over time. Try to understand their dialogue, the words they use about different things, and when you understand that, it helps for you to communicate better with them, and kind of sets parameters for them as well. And I think that makes a big difference. So, but remember that some people may be, as you just mentioned, some people will come out themselves and others don't want to. They don't want you to know that maybe they were someone else. Or, of course, we're talking here about trans, but it really affects the entire LGBTQ community.
I will tell you, if somebody ever comes out to you as trans and they reveal and you didn't know, oftentimes there's a sense that you don't want to look like you didn't know. And I've had this happen several times where I'll say, well, I'm transgender, and people will, oh yeah, but you can tell the gears are turning inside, but they don't want to let you know that they didn't know. I can't speak for others, and of course I don't speak for others. I only speak for myself. I'm always a little disappointed when somebody conveys to me that, well, of course I knew, because they think that that's the most respectful thing. To me, if you let me know that you didn't know, that to me is really that it means I'm doing a good job.
Yes.
And I wish that it didn't matter, but it does matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've given up so much in order to live the life that I'm living, and so it's hard to ever really get feedback about how am I presenting? Is my presentation, am I generally fitting in? Are things generally pretty good? You hit a certain point when you're transgender that you navigate the world such that people that are not supportive generally don't realize that you're transgender because they're not really looking for you. You're probably not on their radar. And the people that are more in tune to transgender issues might know who you are, but they don't usually say anything. So for someone like me, I don't get that feedback very often. So if it does happen to come up and you do mention something like, if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known. Now, you don't make a big deal out of it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, nothing like that. But to just mention something like that, to me, that would mean a lot. Now, maybe other transgender people would not feel the same way. I don't know, but
that's part of the problem, that if you're trying to decide if there's a rule, the rule is there's no rule. So some people are going to think differently. They're not going to have the same reaction you have, and they might see it differently, and so it's difficult. it's that way with anything. I know, for example, being a recovered alcoholic, I can tell you that I can almost tell if somebody is a as a recovering alcoholic by the way they act around certain areas. And we have our own code. And the code usually is, I'm going to tell you the secret now. They will someone will walk over to you and they'll say, I think we have a mutual friend. And then they'll mention the name, which is the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we all understand that. And that's the code. Now, I don't think there's anything like that for the LGBTQ community, but maybe there is. Maybe there's a lot of things like that.
No, but there's kind of a you sort of do it, actually this you assume that. I mean, maybe you don't, but it would be easy to think that among transgender people that there's a way to do this, but we are actually subject to the same things. So if I meet somebody else that I think is transgender, I might want to show my support as well. I probably can't do that really unless I somehow find a way to mention that I'm transgender.
Your grandfather was a World War II. He was a true hero. He was a fighter pilot, flew the P-47, the Thunderbolt. And when most people flew 3 to 5 missions, when they went into World War II, he flew 56 missions. And he was with the 56 Fighter Group, probably one of the most well-known in the European theater in World War II. And what I know about my father-in-law, by the way, who I thought very, very highly of, your grandfather, he was, to me, he was a hero. And I just had a high regard for him in everything he did. But one thing I noticed about him, when he was around here, and I introduced him to someone, he had this technique where within the first minute or two, he would be able to work in the conversation something about World War II. So he could tell him, I'm a fighter pilot. Yeah. And it was pretty good. And it was interesting. He had a lot of great techniques that he would use, and he never failed to use them. It was wonderful.
There's a lot of ways that you can bring up LGBTQ issues in general. And so what you would have to do is the same thing that I would have to do, is bring it up in some other context, not related to the person. Hey, I'm going to a seminar that's being put on by the community, and they're talking about how to be a better ally for LGBTQ people. I'm really excited about it, and talk a little bit about, not to bring it up in any way that's sort of pointed towards the person, but just a normal conversation about, what are you doing later on this week, or any of those kinds of things where you bring it up. Hey, it was interesting. I saw an interesting TV show.
Yep.
That kind of thing. But again, you have to be careful, because we can all sense it when somebody comes up and they have an agenda, and that always feels strange. So somebody comes up and they don't ever talk about the TV shows that they watch, but then all of a sudden somebody says out of the blue, I saw a TV show about a transgender woman. That would feel very awkward to me. If somebody came up and did that to me, I would think, I don't really want to broach this topic here.
Yep.
I don't, so it has to be the same kind of conversation that you would have with somebody else that's not transgender or not LGBTQ in any way. So in other words, you kind of want to be dropping those sort of hints in general with everyone that you speak with, things that you would feel comfortable with. Dropping hints that I'm an ally. And then when that person needs you, they know that you have signaled yourself as a person that is safe.
Right.
That only happens if you're living it. You can't make it as just a small change. It has to be something where you say, hey, I just want to make it known I'm an ally. Maybe it's something that you you get a little button that says, I'm an ally, and you wear it in general. But you're not wearing it for that person. You're wearing it for the community as a whole so that anybody that needs support can come up and say, hey, thank you for wearing that ally button. And I have something where I could really use your support here. And they can reach out to you.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I think you're mentioning that certainly makes a difference to me. I live the life of an ally because that's what I am. And I never hear anybody tell those kind of jokes around me anymore. And it used to be pretty common. And I don't get any of those strange emails or jokes that are passed on. Did that just go away, or are they avoiding me from that? And they're avoiding me from that part of the group because they know I don't want it. I don't like it. And to me, that is affirming that I am communicating what I really am, how I really think, how I really feel, the real me. And that works. So when you're sincere and you really aren't, you're not playing the game, you really, this is the way you think. People see it, they know it, they recognize it. You don't have to advertise that you're an ally when you're that way because everybody knows it.
You don't have to be outspoken. You just have to be, it has to be real. It's the same, well, in your situation, it's because you know that it's the same to you if somebody makes fun of somebody in the LGBTQ community. It's the same to you as if somebody made fun of me. And so because of your love for me,
You're right.
you don't have to think hard about it. Now, for you listening, you maybe don't have somebody that close to you. Maybe you don't have a son or a daughter that's transgender or gay or lesbian, although maybe you do. I know many of you do. Maybe you don't have somebody that's that close. But imagine if they were talking about somebody that was one of your closest loved ones, how would you react? That's the way that you show that you're an ally. You don't have to think through it and all of these big things and, let me make a 12-point list. No, you just live the way that you would live if someone that was very, very close to you was being affected when somebody tells that joke. And then it's obvious what to do.
If you're a conservative or a liberal and you're one way or the other, people can pick up on that pretty quickly. And not always. I mean, sometimes you'll say nothing, and that's okay. But they will know if you are on either side if you speak up about it. And it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that.
You just live it, and it sort of exudes from you.
Yes,
People
that's
know.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People know.
And the same way they know we talk often about religion here. And they know if you're a believer or not. I mean, kind of. It's kind of like that.
And there again, those, as long as you are sincere about it, that will cover a multitude of mistakes.
Yes.
I have a friend that I used to work with. He no longer works with me, so I don't see him much anymore. We're still Facebook friends. But he first let me know that he knew that I was transgender because he asked me randomly about, it was when the whole transgender and the military issue was coming up. And he said, hey, what do you think about this issue? And I actually didn't have very strong thoughts about it because I'm not all that close to the military myself, although I probably have had stronger thoughts since then, since I've gotten to know more people where that directly affected. But at the time, I gave him kind of my thoughts, and we got to talking, and it was a little bit of a head nod that he was just kind of letting me know, I know, and if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Now, I didn't love that way of bringing it up because, again, there's no way to tell me that you know that I'm transgender in a way that's going to feel good to me. There's just not. But of the ways that you could do that was about as good as any that he brought. But again, I thought, why is he asking me and not somebody else? He knows he's asking me because he figures I'm going to have thoughts on the topic that go beyond what others would.
you come back to the email that we got. The second part of this, I want to show support. What can I say? Let's say you know, they know, everything else. I'm guessing what the person wants to do is, let's suppose that some guy comes in with his husband, okay, and they're both gay. They come in there, and it's pretty obvious. Now, I would say, how do you show support? Treat them as equal. That's the best way to do it. But also, they know that you're accepting and affirming.
Yeah, I think that's all that you can do, because anything beyond that is probably going to feel awkward. Anything to call attention to it. A little bit like that situation in the restaurant. Hey, you're Japanese and I know a Japanese word.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit awkward. Now, what I will do, because I'm part of the community, we have a term that we will use within the community that we will say, if somebody else is gay or lesbian, we'll say their family. And I might say, for instance, I've had a few enrollments that I've done with people in Medicare where it's maybe a woman, and then she said, and my wife will be aging into Medicare in a year or two, but I'm here now. And then I'll say something like, oh, well, it's always good to work with family. And it's just a little hat tip that I will do to let them know that we share some common ground. And that's all that I'll say. And then we'll go on from there. That's probably a good way, beyond being an ally and just not making a big deal out of it. That's probably all that you can do. If you're an ally but you're not part of the community yourself, is just making it clear that you're a loving person, that you're a caring person, and you're not treating the person differently. We're very grateful for this letter. Thank you so much for writing in to ask us about this and for listening. And we're grateful to you for coming back week after week.
If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with someone else.
Remember, we're dedicated to preserving positive relationships.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us here this week. It's great to have you with us every week as we bring in that positivity.
Have a great week. We'll see you Monday.